Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to our webinar. We will start it momentarily, just waiting for a few additional members to join. So I believe we have a quorum. My name is Aviv Cohen. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for CISIS. And today we're going to answer the question of how can automated penetration testing make your company safer? I'm happy to introduce our speaker for today, Noam Segev. Noam is a distinguished cybersecurity consultant and regional manager of our operations in Europe. Hi, Noam.
Hello.
Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping rules. You have at the bottom of the screen the ability to ask questions. Please do so as the presentation goes along. We will answer the questions at the end of Noam's talk, and if time would not allow, we would follow up and answer those questions in writing after the event. There's also an option to chat with the panelists, and we might, if time allows, even do a poll at the end. We will record this session, and this recording will be made available to you after the webinar. And with that, I am happy to turn it to Noam Segev. Noam.
Thank you, Aviv. Welcome, everyone. I appreciate you coming over. As Aviv mentioned, my name is Noam. I'm managing the Europe region for CISIS. And in my background, I used to manage the international sales for ComSec Group. ComSec is the world's first dedicated cybersecurity consulting firm, and I was managing operation in 40 countries, doing a lot of penetration testing projects for tier 1 and tier 2 organizations mostly. And when I've seen this technology of CISIS, I said to myself that I need to participate. And I will try to talk to you from both aspects of a cybersecurity consultant who has his own personal knowledge about penetration testing and give you my aspect about this new technology and how it becomes a game changer in the world of cybersecurity. So first of all, I would like to discuss with you about what is an effective IT implementation cycle. An effective IT implementation cycle is built out of two pillars, basically. The first pillar is security validation, and the second one is the remediation. Both pillars are basically, dependent on each other. So you cannot do a good remediation without understanding what are the most urgent problems that you have. And there's no point of doing validation if you don't have the will or the resources to do remediation. So this is one cycle. Usually it comes as a cycle that repeats itself. And if you're asking me, by the way, the main problem of this cycle is that it is too long today. Just it takes too long. So let's talk a little bit about validation. What is validation and what is a good validation? A good validation should basically indicate for you all the problems that you have. It should challenge your entire security architecture. And on the technological aspect, it should tell you if you have the right network configuration, if all of your security tools are doing what they are supposed to do. It should indicate what are the most urgent security technologies that you need to implement, if you did all the right patching, if you have the right policies. A good validation should also indicate on the human factor many things. Do your employees, are they making mistakes that make you vulnerable to malicious cyber attacks? How many domain admins you have in your network? 50? You really need to have 50? Because each one of these domain admins is a potential risk for you. Are you enforcing your credentials policy correctly? So all of these aspects should be indicated if you have a real security validation. Now today, when we are talking about the infrastructure network of your organization, there are two ways to do security validation. The first one is a methodology, which is called penetration testing. And the second one is a technology, which is vulnerability scan. So let's talk a little bit. I know that this is basic, but it's very important to understand the value of each one and the problems of each one of them. So first of all, what is a vulnerability scan? A vulnerability scan is a static inspection of the potential points of exploit on a network to identify security holes. Now, what does it do? Basically, it detects and classifies the weaknesses in your network and grades them according to best practices. What are best practices? What does it mean? Best practices are industry standard. So if we found this vulnerability with the vulnerability scanning tool, we will grade it according to those, let's say 1,000 organizations, we found this vulnerability. In average, it will be a high risk, a medium risk, or a low risk. The main problem here is that a vulnerability scan doesn't prove the actual business impact of the vulnerability inside your organization. And therefore, there are a lot of false positives. Now, I would like to show to you a Gartner report that shows the gap between vulnerabilities and actual exploits. And you can see that in 2017, while you have, according to vulnerability scanning tools, while you have 14,803 vulnerabilities found, you have only 749 vulnerabilities that has been reported as actually being exploited. So only 5% of known vulnerabilities have been actually exploited. It means that a vulnerability scanning tool will indicate all the vulnerabilities that we know about, but it will not give you a good indication where to invest your resources in your actual organization. You will have a lot of false positive, and you will be finding yourself wasting a lot of time in vulnerabilities which are not relevant to you. Now let's talk about the other approach, penetration testing. So penetration testing is not static. It's a dynamic evaluation of your security controls, as well as the business impact of vulnerabilities across your network. It means that it is what a penetration testing is doing is actually proving the actual business impact of a vulnerability on your actual network, and it has actually no false positives. So every vulnerability which you will get from penetration testing will be real, and it will be proven, and you will understand what is the actual risk. It will connect the vulnerability into an actual risk inside your organization. Just to emphasize what I'm saying, I want you to meet my good friend, Alice. This is not the Alice in Wonderland that you know, it's her sister, Alice in Cyberland. And Alice is now doing a vulnerability scan. She found a vulnerability, a door. You see, according to best practices, this door is small. So Alice will probably go and deal, first of all, with the big doors. Then if she has more resources, she will deal with the medium doors. And this she will actually leave for the last moment. But if Alice would do a penetration testing, she would actually don't care what is the size of the door. She will open the door, jump inside the rabbit hole, and check what damage she can create if she will exploit this vulnerability. So this is the main difference. So we all understand that in terms of reporting back to you, penetration testing is better because it proves the actual business impact and it connects you to the actual risk. But penetration testing is also problematic. It has a lot of problems, and I want to discuss this very, very quickly. So first of all, penetration testing is done traditionally by third-party consulting firms, like the company that I was working for. And it has drawbacks that we also need to understand. So let's talk a little bit about the pains in manual penetration testing. I'll make it real quick. First of all, it all begins from the fact that we don't have enough penetration testers in the world. This is Izaka report about the cybersecurity skills gap. On the left hand, it shows that the threats or the threat landscape is growing year by year. And on the other side, it shows that there is a growing shortage of cybersecurity professionals. By the way, in the report, it mentions that there is a shortage of 300,000 pen testers in Europe only. And by the way, 300,000 shortage of pen testers in the US as well. So what happens when you have demand for the service, but not enough consultants to provide the supply? The cost of the service is growing. Now, what happens because of this? The cost that is growing is being translated to you because you have limited budget. And eventually, when you come to do penetration testing, you will limit your budget. Let's say your budget for penetration testing is 10,000 pounds, okay? A consulting firm will translate your budget into actually a scope or the time that they will invest. So if you give me 10,000 pounds, I will give you 2 guys that will be working in your network for 5 days and 2 days for reporting, and whatever they achieve within this time frame, this is what you get. So there is no full coverage of your entire network. And this is a problem. When you need to limit the scope and there is no full network coverage, you don't have a full visibility of how your network looks like. Another problem is that there is a lot of headache around, there's a lot of project management, a lot of resources that are being spilled around bringing a third party into your organization. Okay, because you have a limited budget, so you need to scope the project according to the budget, and then you need to communicate it to 3 or 4 different vendors, and then you need to issue a purchase order, and you need to choose who is the right vendor, and you understand how it's going. So a lot of resources are actually being spent and being consumed on things which are not relevant to the actual pen testing. Now let's go a little bit more technically. Let's assume that. Not assume, I give you an example. We did a POC for a customer who is one of the largest banks in Europe. And they just finished this validation remediation cycle where they operated one of the 4 big ones for penetration testing and for 2 weeks, and then did a remediation process that took them about 3 months. And just as soon as they finished their remediation, we came there to do a POC. And it was very easy for us to actually own their network and take control over the network. Why? Because by the time that they finish this validation and remediation, their organizational network has totally changed. It's very dynamic. They had 5 new employees that joined the company. Each one of them got his own credentials, got his own computer or laptop. They brought their own mobile phones. Okay, at that time, they also added another router to the network and implemented the third-party software. So manual penetration testing is something that is being done periodically, and therefore it's a snapshot in time, while the organizational layer or the infrastructure layer of the organization is dynamic and constantly changing. And we need to find a way to meet those dynamic changes in the organizational network. Also, think about it. I'm a penetration tester, and I came now to do penetration testing for you manually for the first time. I have only 5 days. Remember, you have a budget limitations. So I need to impress you. And how will I impress you? I will impress you by trying to bring you as many top achievements that I can within this short time frame. So what I will do, I will start looking opportunistically for top achievements. Once I got one, I will show you the attack vector, as you can see on the screen. Okay, you will see the steps I did for in order to achieve this top achievement. The first step would be to exploit the vulnerability, and then I will give you a recommendation what you should do in order to remediate this vulnerability, so a malicious hacker will not be able to repeat what I did. And then the first thing that I will do will be to rush to find opportunistically the next achievement. But the truth is that for every achievement, there is more than a single possible attack vector. Manual penetration testing will not be able to find it. This is a limitation, and it's a limitation of work, okay? So just to conclude this, manual penetration testing is opportunistic and achievement-oriented. Instead of being systematic, cover the entire network and provide to you a real security validation that shows how everything connects, excuse me. And exactly like I showed you the last slide, this is the reason that manual penetration testing reports are actually are built out of single attack vectors. They don't give you any consolidated mechanism that supports a strategic remediation process. You don't have a full visibility of all the possible attack vectors, seeing how they connect to a single vulnerability, and allow you to choose what would be the actual, remediation that would achieve for you, that if you will deal with it with the minimum effort, you will get the maximum result. So where does it leave us as stakeholders inside the organization? I'm going to the solution very, very soon, but it's important to understand the problem. So first of all, this is a fact. Guys, we are defenders, and we find ourselves in the urge to protect our organization against growing cyber attacker capabilities. Year by year, we see that attacker capabilities are growing, and the attackers becoming more aggressive, more sophisticated. They are using automated tools as well, and they are very well financed. And this is, we have a pressure to defend against growing attacker capabilities. From the other side, we have our good friend, the regulator. Everyone remembers May 25, 2018, the hysteria of GDPR. And GDPR Article 32.1d is demanding us to regularly test, assess, and evaluate security effectiveness and controls. What does it mean? If you do vulnerability scan every week, is it enough? Maybe you should hire 500 penetration testers in your organization, working in shifts around the day, so you will have a continuous penetration testing? I don't know. You don't know probably, and you know what? The GDPR, they don't know themselves. But I do know one thing, that once your customer base has been breached, you will need to sit in front of the GDPR committee and argue that you did enough in order to prevent this from happening. And remember that the only reason that you're standing in front of the GDPR right now is because your customer base has been breached. So this is not a very good place to be, right? So just want to say that when I think about the regulator, and I was doing a lot of governance projects in my life, the regulator is trying to do good. He's trying to build a framework. And I participated, by the way, in several frameworks of the European Union in the past. They're trying to build a framework that will give the guidelines of how to build security controls. But because we live in an environment where our resources are so limited, we are actually finding ourselves clinging into those, governance things, into those checklists, in doing what the regulator is demanding, instead of thinking outside the box, knowing our organization and understanding what are the real problems of our organization. And by the way, because we don't have a real security validation, we are also sometimes leading blindly our management, because if we cannot prove to them what is the actual business impact that will happen, if they will not give us the resources that we need to do what we want to do and what we think is right for our organization, how shall we do it without proving it to them? We need to give them the proof. We need to tell them, guys, if I will not get this money to do this and that, this will be the damage. Are you willing to take the risk? We don't have this visibility. So it's always the blind leading the blind. So what is a real security validation? Let's start.
How secure are your IT systems? Pen testing is a useful method to test cyber defense, but it has its own drawbacks. Any penetration test represents only a moment in time and might become irrelevant in the next moment. Human pen tests are difficult, limited in scope, and expensive to execute. Psysys provides a solution for these drawbacks, a revolutionary platform performing automated, continuous pen testing on your systems. Our platform is literally mimicking the hacker's mind, modeling the hacker's tactics and way of thinking into machine language. We create an effective virtual hacker that works for you. In fact, we create an army of automated hackers who are challenging your organizational IT in new ways, 24/7, never tired, trying to find the weak spots in its defenses. You will always be the first to know, as our system identifies and remediates potential breaking points in your defenses on a continuous basis. Psysys provides an agentless, self-learning, adaptive, and continuous artificial intelligence-based pen testing platform. We bring you closer to the truth about how secure you really are. Psysys. Proactive security validation.
Oh, cool. So, what is the concept? What are we doing? Actually, we are mimicking the same process that is done manually by ethical hackers, but we are doing it by utilizing the machine power. utilizing the machine power allows us actually to do the work very, very fast, cover the entire network. It would take us probably minutes to hours to do what it would take to a team of manual penetration testers to do for weeks or months, okay? And we can cover the entire network very, very fast, see how everything connects, all the different attack vectors are connected to different vulnerabilities or to the same vulnerabilities, report back to you very, very accurately in order that you will make the right decision and create a cost-effective remediation. The whole idea, by the way, the whole value of what we are doing actually is to save money. And the idea is that we're not only providing you real security validation, we can actually save you money by doing the right remediation and the cost-effective remediation. Now, let me explain first of all the concept, then I will talk about the methodology, and then I will go to the demo. So first of all, I made for you a nice table that explains where are the strengths of each one of the known validation techniques, okay? So vulnerability scan has the advantages of being automated software, okay? That is being used by your in-house staff and increases expertise and knowledge of normal security profile, and that it is allowing you to do it continuously. So it moves somehow with the changes in your infrastructure network. But if we are talking about the metrics, the advantages are for the penetration testing, because penetration testing discovers unknown and exploitable exposures, provides the actual business impact analysis of vulnerabilities on your actual network. And by the way, if I will take both of the techniques, so vulnerability scan is a detective control used to detect weaknesses, while manual penetration testing is a preventive control used to reduce your exposure to cyber attacks. So what we were able to do is to actually combine the best of all of those two validation techniques and actually get the value of each one of them. Let's talk a little bit about the methodology. So what we do actually, we connect to your network, okay? We just connect to your LAN, we don't deploy any agents, anything, and we define what would be the IP range in a basic black box attack. There are different types of attacks. I'm concentrating on the black box attack. We will define what would be the IP range and different parameters for the attack that we want to do. And then we start with the first step, we will start with the discovery. So we will discover all the machines within the IP range. The next step will be enumeration. We will communicate with each one of the devices and understand what is a device, if it's a computer or a server, what is the operation system that runs on, what are the main operations that are running on the device, who are the main users, and we will do a vulnerability analysis. If there were patches done or not done, and then we will move to the next step, which will be vulnerability analysis. Up to here, we're actually talking about a static vulnerability scan, exactly like your vulnerability scanning tools, Nessus, Qualys. So we will be doing the same operation. The second step, from here, this is only the preparation for us. From this point over, we stop being static and we start to become more and more dynamic. At first, we start sniffing credentials within the network. And then we start to move as a living organ within your network, moving from victim to victim and running different types of ethical exploitations on each one of those potential victims. Once we were able to exploit a victim, we will provide back to the system post-exploitation. Post-exploitations can mean what kind of valuable information we could find on the victim in order to actually use it for malicious purposes, in order to laterally move within the network, okay? We will also stress test different types of security tools that you have. I will give you an example. We will upload a payload, a malware. It has no malicious capability, but if you have an antivirus, your antivirus should actually block it. Or if you have an endpoint detection and response tool, it should raise alarms and segregate the system, the system from the network, right? If you have a honeypot system, they should raise alarms. So we will do different tests that will actually stress test your existing security architecture and all the tools that you have. And after we finished with the testing, we will actually finish the cycle, do sanitation and clean up, will not leave any remains. the payload that we uploaded, we will delete it. Nothing will stay there. And by the way, we will not remember also anything from this run, and we will be ready for the next run. So actually, this part is actually totally dynamic ethical exploitation. And what we took actually the two validation techniques, combined them into one fully automated cycle that provides for you a real security validation very, very fast. Okay, just before I go to the demo, some explanations about the key solution concept. First of all, to scope what we are doing, CySys is doing internal penetration testing on your infrastructure level. We are not attacking from the outside, we are attacking from the inside. Why? By the way, we were able to mimic the hacker mindset. So on the long run, we are going to replace all the manual penetration testing. But we decided to concentrate on the infrastructure layer because it's the most problematic layer. It is the most dynamic layer. If you're talking about the application layer, applications are not changing. From one version to the other, there are no changes in the applications. So it's enough that you do a penetration testing on an application, do the remediation, and until you release a new version to the market, nothing will change. But the infrastructure layer is so dynamic that it changes continuously. And this is where we need to put our finger on. We need to make sure that everything, actually, that we are up to date with all the vulnerabilities that are being created. Also, think about it, that all of your crown jewels eventually are located on your infrastructure level. So your customer base, your billing system, all the databases, your source code, everything is stored inside your infrastructure. And our job is to make sure that even if a malicious hacker was able to get into the bank, and if your perimeter has been breached, we need to make sure that he will not be able to get into the safe. This is the job that we are doing. So just a few things about what we are doing. So first of all, we are agentless, as I said. All we need from you, or all you need, is to get the software uploaded on your computer. I will also define what is the hardware needed for the software, which is not a big complicated hardware. And that's it, you're up and running. So we are agentless, we don't deploy anything. We are working just like any manual ethical hacker because we are doing the same process. Second thing, we are comprehensive. Because of the machine power, as I said, we can cover the entire network and show you how everything connects to each other. Third, continuous. Now, this is very important. What do I mean when I say continuous? When I say continuous, it doesn't mean that you need to run penetration testing all the time. It means that we allow you to make a run on a much, much shorter cycle than the existing one. Today, most of you are doing penetration testing once a year, maybe once a quarter. The idea is that you can run, we are offering a new methodology for the validation remediation process. Run our machine on a black box, on the regular run it every 2 weeks. We will be able to indicate to you what would be the 2 or 3 vulnerabilities that if you deal with them, you will be 95% protected. Most of the top achievements will be neutralized if you will deal with them. So concentrate on these vulnerabilities, and after 2 weeks, run it again. And if you will still have top achievements, use it for the other 2 weeks. By the way, between run to the other run, probably a medium, let's say a medium organization, it would take us a run, it would take us 2 to 3 days to cover and show everything. Okay, so between one run to the other, you can also run different types of attacks in order to make sure that your specific crown jewels are protected. I will talk about it. But the whole concept is that the IT security implementation cycle, instead of being periodically, it will become continuous and it will be divided to shorter cycles and much more concentrated on what really matters. By the way, think about it, that if you make a penetration testing once a year, and then you do a full remediation for everything, most of the things that you will remediate will not be valid anymore. There's no point of doing it. Concentrate on what brings you the maximum result. Last and not least, we know that running ethical exploitations is something that has the potential to create disturbances in your network. This is why we built for you a risk management mechanism where you can confirm or reject different ethical exploits. So you can request approvals for different ethical exploits that you are running and decide. I'm not going to explain deeply, but you can decide. You will sit on the demo. You will, when you want to do those attacks, or if you want to do them or not. Okay, and actually manage the risks that you're doing around running ethical exploitations in your network. So it is an aggressive process, but this process is controlled. We allow you the full control. By the way, when you're using a third-party manual penetration tester, and now between me and getting a top achievement that will impress you, stand decision, if I want to do a brute force on your billing system, trust me, I would have done the brute force. And I wouldn't probably ask you. I would just take a risk. Now the risk is in your hands. Ethical exploits. The idea of ethical exploits actually is to mimic the intent of a malicious hacker without actually doing that, without having the malicious capability. For example, I will prove to you that I have the access to your source code, but I will not take your source code and show it to you. We'll just show you that if I wanted to have it, I will show you. And we are capable today of doing all the known ethical exploits in the market. By the way, we have, I don't say that we don't need ethical hackers. We hire ethical hackers. We have the top ethical hackers here at Sysys, but we keep them for our R&D department. So they are sitting, and their job is to sit and study all the new attack scenarios that exist in the market right now, all the new threat landscape, develop tools that will mimic those new attacks, and implement them inside our automated penetration testing platform. So we, every month and a half, we issue a new version to all of our customers and keep them updated against all the new attacks. And eventually, what is the value? What is the value of our solution? Actually, our capability to provide you full or real security validation and strategic and prioritized insight that will support your cost-effective remediation. Don't forget, the validation by itself it doesn't exist. It's always validation remediation. Having the capability to know exactly how your organization looks like for any malicious hacker from any side or any point that he will attack will give you the right decision-making of how to do cost-effective remediation and get the maximum result with minimum effort. Before I go to the demo, I just want to mention one thing. The basic run that we are doing is black box penetration testing. We connect to your LAN. We just want you to insert what is the IP range or different ranges that we want us to run, and we don't need any other information. We have the capability to run more advanced scenarios. So we are using gray box penetration testing for what-if scenarios, meaning if you want to check, for example, what would happen if a malicious hacker get a call center person credentials? Where can he get from there? Can he get into the billing system? Can he get into the CEO's computer? We have the capability to test it. You have the capability to test it. Really, really easy. But the coolest thing that we have is the goal-targeted penetration testing. So between run to run, you can decide, okay, this is my GDPR system, and I want to make sure that it is very, very, very secured. I want to make sure that it is 100% secure. So you can decide, you can give the system, Sysys system, the instruction to look for all the possible attack vectors across the network that will allow a malicious hacker to get into this crown jewel. By the way, it doesn't have to be an IP. It can be also a file. So you can enter keywords and it will go and search for all the possible attack vectors, and then you can actually make sure that you're isolating your crown jewels from any attack. Okay, so after explaining the concept, I will finally go to the product demo, and this will actually give you the proof of what we are doing. Guys, this is a demo from a real POC. This is a movie taken from a real POC with a real timeline that we did for an actual customer of ours. So we got the permission to show it. We're hiding, of course, details, but I want to show you how it actually works. So let's start. So when we arrive to the customer, for a POC, what we do, we define the IP range and the type of the attack. So what you see here is at the first stage, we actually define what would be the IP range or different IP ranges you can add or remove, and the maximum duration of attack and the maximum spoofing. The next step that we will be doing, we will decide what would be the parameters of the attack. So we can decide what will be the stealthiness level, noisy or stealthy. Also, you can decide the parameter if you want to allow exploits, if you want to de-escalate or not, if you want to use special exploits, allow administrative user creation, require approval for that, for special exploits only, for all exploits, if you want to allow service brute force or not, or if you want to require approval. And now we can do submit and run as a black box. If you wanted to do a what-if scenario or goal-targeted penetration testing, you would simply press next, and then you could enter the other parameters, okay? But now we run, on this is a POC, we run a black box penetration testing, and what you see here is the real timeline of the attack. So the first thing, if you remember, that we do, we discover all the IPs within the IP range. Next step is enumeration, and we start to communicate with each one of the machines. You see that we already start to understand what each one of the machines is doing, and here we already have vulnerabilities. Exactly like your vulnerability scanning tool will find, we are doing the same right now. While we are doing finding vulnerabilities, we already start active dynamically in your network and start using these vulnerabilities. And we already have 30 seconds inside the run, we already have actually an achievement from ethical hacking, okay? Now, we grade our achievements from 1 to 10 according to the level of severity. This achievement right now is 5. It's not a high severity, but it continues to build up. As we move in the network laterally, we create more and more and more achievements. And we already have here 8, we have 9, okay? We're 2 minutes inside the run, guys, okay? And it will continue to build up. Now you see on the left, vulnerabilities are being built up and graded, and on the right, attacker achievements, okay? By the way, the machines that we are working on, you can see that we are blinking right now, where we are running different ethical exploitations on them. Now we are 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Opa, we have a 10. 10 means that basically we own your network. So what we got here, let's see. We got the domain admin user in clear text password. You guys see, I guess, right? Now, another thing that I want to show you, you see here that we have already approval blinking. Remember that I requested approvals for special exploits? So here we will open this, and now we have a list of IPs with, here in this case, we want to upload a malware on these IPs, and we can decide if we want to approve all of them or just some of them. And once we approve, immediately we continue to run and see how many attacks, how many achievements we already have, guys. Okay, now we jump to 13 minutes. Okay, we have a big list of achievements. And look, we got the domain admin user in clear text password. Let's say that I want to advance the attack. Okay, I can go into user input, and here I can enter the credentials that I found and do R poisoning on infiltrate files or mark as DC. Right now, I don't want to use it. It's a black box. Okay, now, what we did now, we pushed the get domain admin user in clear text password. And what you see here is in schematics, you see the entire attack vector. You see all the operations that were done so far. Okay, so at the bottom, you will see the top achievements. We got domain admin, user in clear text. Here are the results. Okay, here is the insight. Okay, we don't show you exactly now the password because we hide it, but you can choose if you want to show it or hide it. And here is the first vulnerability that we were able to do. So sensitive information can be sniffed due to network misconfiguration. We give you the parameter, we give you the insight, and we tell you what is the immunity that you need to do. Now you can decide if you want or not to simulate a fix. Let's talk about it later. I will show you the value. Okay, let's continue. So we were able to sniff credentials, but the credentials were hashed. Now we have in our system the capability. Basically, we are installed on a Linux system that has a graphic card, a GPU, okay? The graphic card allows us actually to crack passwords in different efforts. So we can start with commonly used passwords. By the way, here we were able to crack the password using commonly used passwords, but we can do also other 3 levels that take from seconds into hours and days of cracking. And of course, that if we were able to crack the password in a short time, in a short effort, this is a high risk. But if it took us 2 or 3 days, the risk is lower. But we indicate to you what was the risk or the level of the password cracking that we needed to do in order to do it. Cool. So here we show you, for example, the results of cracking the passwords. I will run a little bit forward because I want to make it a bit shorter. And I want to show you effective remediation. So I will go into this one, just a moment. Okay, I will go now into the vulnerability. By the way, vulnerability is not only from the vulnerability assessment. Vulnerability can be defined also by ethical hacking. Because if I was able to crack password by using a commonly used password, this is a vulnerability and it has a remediation. The remediation is that you need to set up a stronger password policy, right? Now let's see, we will open this vulnerability and we will simulate the fix. And you see that the entire attack vector below it has been neutralized. Now, this is common, that if you will fix it, the attack vector will not exist anymore. Why do I show it to you? Let's move now to another top achievement. In this top achievement, we were able to open a remote access session on the host. Okay, it's a top achievement. And let's see how it was affected if we simulated the fix, this same fix that we found on this attack vector. So let's see. Okay, see, this is a very, very nice view. What you see here, first of all, let's explain. We were able, you see here the number 7, we were able to open a remote access session on the host 7 times. The first ones were 1, 2, and 3. And then we were able to move to the next, from this attack vector, we were able to move to 4 more achievements that we were able to get, okay? So actually, this was the first one, and then there was a hop to here, and then we were able to hop to here, here, and here. By the way, assume that you had a manual penetration testing. They would show you, for example, this. They were able to open a remote access session on the host from only this attack vector. They would not find this possibility, and they would certainly will not be able to find this that would lead to this, 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 and this. But what is important to show you is that when we simulated the fix that we found on GAT domain admin's user in clear text and password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 7 achievements were also neutralized. Now this exactly shows you what would be a cost-effective remediation. And let me give you a hint, and this is a real hint, that if I would go to the top vulnerability on 10, and I would, which we found there in network misconfiguration, this entire achievement would have been disappeared. I'm not showing this to you because I want to have another discussion with you later on. Cool. So let's continue. I remind you guys that everything here was created in 13 minutes, right? Let's unsimulate the fix. Cool. Now I want to show you, I talked a little bit about what is ethical exploitation. I want to show you an example for ethical exploitation and what is the value of ethical exploitation, how it looks like. What is the difference between this one and the malicious? So let's go to this attack vector. We're able to gather valuable information from the host. Let's see what kind of post-exploitation I provide you. So what we show you here is different credentials that we were able to crack that actually led us to your GitHub. So we now show you that we have an access to your GitHub. And it means that we own your source code. So we don't need to show you that we stole the source code. Here's your source code. It's enough that we show you that we have access to it and we can do whatever we want. We can tamper with it, we can steal it. This is ethical exploitation. And this is the way that we prove to you what is the potential damage. Now, what I would like also to show you from this step is the reporting. Now, all of you guys who are here and are cybersecurity professionals understand that those schematics are what you want to look at. This is what an analyst would like to see in order to decide what would be the right things to do. But we still have the regulator. We still have our management that wants to see what we're doing. So therefore, you have automated report generation in the system. So the first report that I'm going to show you is the summary report. This is a report that goes usually to the regulator or to the management. And what you can see here basically it generates is general information about the attack. Okay, how many systems were attacked, what was the IP range, how many hosts, what are the top achievements that the attacker did. You can view more, you can show 3 or you can show them all. Action items, what are the remediations that needs to be done? What are the vulnerabilities that were found? Here, in this case, we extend it and you can see all of them. Okay, and now we can show you what was the total password cracking and what was the levels of password cracking that we needed to do in order to crack the passwords. By the way, here in this case, this was a very short run, so you don't see the medium strong, okay? You see only those trivial ones. But if I would give it, for example, a few hours, you would see also those who were cracked with a medium effort, for example, or an easy effort. And if it was few days, it would be strong effort. So we see the password strength, and you will get also a graph that will show it to you. More here, you will get also more detailed type of attack. So what did we do? Full scanning and enumeration, how many devices, and all the information. And then you can decide if you want to show or not the top attack vectors, okay, and how they were built. You can show not only the attack vectors, but also the topology. You can see here the attack vector plus the topology, if you want to show it or not. And you can also show, or not, you can decide how to define it, all the credentials list that we were able to crack. And now we can export it to a PDF, and here you have the report ready. Very, very nice report that you can forward to your management. Cool? But this is not the only report. There's also a report which is action items. Action items is the remediations that you need to give to your IT department to fix, right? And how your IT department likes to get it? In Excel. So let's export it to Excel. And here this can go to your IT department and they can follow up and they can say, okay, on this date, I did this and this, They can report back to you on what was the remediation. Another point which is very important, this is a full action report. Unlike manual penetration testing that shows you only the success, we show you also where we fail. Here we show you, for example, our success rate. By the way, in the report, you can also see what is, you can get in the report, what was the success of each one of the operations. But the idea is that this tool is being operated by you, and you can judge by yourself the level of your improvement, and you can communicate it also to the management, okay? So you can see here everything that we succeeded in doing, and everything that we failed. Our job is not to make you fail. We want to give you the tool that will allow you to improve yourself more and more. And we have many, many other reports there, vulnerability report, host reports, overviews, whatever you want. Everything can be exported into the needed document type. So this is a short demo of the product. Of course, that if any of you is interested in this solution, we are offering a free POC to our customers, to our prospects, in order to prove how it works in your network. We are doing it usually on a limited range of IPs. We come there for 1 day. It's a 1 day POC. We connect to the LAN, define the IP range, and go, as we say. I just want to finish with what Gartner said about our tool. So after checking our tool, they said 2 things, which I can conclude. First thing they said, I think we can risk saying that pen testing as it is today will cease to exist. Not that we don't need penetration testers, guys, but we don't have enough. So we believe that within the very, very near future, actually the future is now, it's here, we will be using the knowledge and know-how of penetration testers in order to put it inside our technology, or technologies that will come. We're the only ones today in the market, but they will be coming competitors, of course, in the next 2 years, 3 years. It's not easy to mimic us, but eventually it will happen, okay? But the idea is we have a shortage of human pen testers. We need to automate the process. And eventually the process is being automated. And the second thing that Gartner said is that the tool can ensure consistency, provide better reporting, and do it faster, not to mentioning requiring less skills. Guys, none of you need to be an ethical hacker to operate our tool. It's enough that you understand the cybersecurity and IT, and configuring an attack is something that takes you about 2-3 minutes to design what type of attack you want, whether it's a black box attack or it's a gray box, or if it's a goal targeted. It's really 3 steps that takes you a few minutes. And I would like to thank you for listening to me. This is time for questions and answers. And thank you for your patience. And sorry for the Israeli accent, of course.
Thank you, Noam. This is Aviv. I'd like to start, before we do the questions, actually with launching a poll about how painful is in the eyes of the forum penetration testing. With a little bit of humor, is it about pain or is it about pen? And all you need to do is click on whether at the top it's really where I hate it, expensive and intrusive, a necessary evil but not pleasant, not a big deal, run smoothly every time. And I like being pen tested. That's the one on the bottom. All you need to do is take your mouse and actually select one of the options. And let's give it about 20 seconds just to see where people are. And in parallel to us beginning to get the votes in, it would be great if you drop us a question. All you need to go is at the bottom of the screen, there's a Q&A tab. And once you open that tab, you can ask a question. Again, we'll answer it now. Noam will answer the questions if there's time. Otherwise, we'll take it offline. So it's time for a few last votes. Guys, please just click on one of the line on the check boxes, and submit at the bottom. That's also important in order for your answer to come in. In the meantime, while the poll is still open, Noam, I wanted to have the first question. The question from one of the CISOs on the line is, what kind of agents and installation you need to perform on the LAN in order to install the SISIS software?
Good question. I think that I talked about it in my presentation. We are mimicking the actual hacking process that is done manually. We don't need to deploy any agents in the network. All we need is access to your network. So we need a LAN access, and that's it. No deployment. We are plug and play. As if I was coming with my tool, to pen test into your network.
Another question that came in is, can this solution also be used for pen testing outside the LAN?
No, we are concentrating on infrastructure internal penetration testing. So it means we are not attacking from the outside. We are attacking from the inside. And the idea is not to protect the perimeter. All of you heard the saying that the perimeter is dead. The idea is to make sure that, once the perimeter has been breached, an attacker will not be able actually to go to the crown jewels without being discovered, without, that we will get him actually contained where he penetrated and will not be able to move laterally and escalate the attack.
Okay, so closing the poll, we have our results, and I'm glad to show it to you. It's a bit of a bell-shaped curve, but pretty steep towards the necessary evil one. Noam, how would you relate to this quick poll here of the forum?
I also voted it's a necessary evil, not pleasant, because there's a lot of pains around it. And actually, most of the customers that I used to do penetration testing to them were feeling as if they need to protect themselves. They wanted, they were afraid from what we will find. And I think that the capability of SISIS is to actually give them the tool that will allow them to pen test themselves and see by themselves the results and generate the attacks by themselves. It will be something that will make it much more pleasant, not to mention that this is an effective thing because you can do it continuously and you can actually upgrade yourself. By the way, I must say that there is a lot of headache when you need to get the approval from the management and the budget to do it. And in most cases, the penetration testing is more related to the regulator instead of actually, improving yourself in terms of your cyber resilience.
Okay. So thank you very much, Noam. It's been an amazing time and really an eye-opener. We will conclude our webinar and again send the link of the recording to those who registered. Thank you very much, and we're here to provide you additional information together with our resellers that invited you today to this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, and I hope to see you in person soon.
Thank you, Noam.
Cheers.